the 25-minute one this morning, the Bloomberg one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
November 13th, 2024. It's time to wake up with AI. Here with Nico, George on personal assignment, we'll say. I'm sure he's watching and listening wherever he is. But just me and Nico today. What do you got, man? How you feeling?
I'm doing good. Got a lot per usual. You know, there's exciting news, there's interesting news, there's really eye-opening, mind-blowing news. It's all over the place.
Some smelling salts,
Yeah.
some visionary stuff as per usual, per usual. So
Yeah.
wherever you want to start, man.
Well, I know that you and I have actually like gone through and done like a little bit deeper, dug a little bit deeper into Claude and had some pretty in-depth conversations. And in our chat, I dropped in a video that was from well, it was Lex Friedman's interview, but it was with two different people from Anthropic. One was Dario Amodei. Um, the other, let me see, I don't want to butcher names, um, except that he didn't actually. Amanda Askell, I think it's Askell. So I'm sorry if that's not right, but um, so Dario is the is one of the chief like builders. Amanda, on the other hand, is on the philosophical team. So she is much more in the realm of, she actually is in charge of helping to build Claude's character and Claude's personality. So like the first half was about, was with Dario and kind of where things are going with the company and everything. The second half was with Amanda Askell, and it was way more about, philosophy behind what's going on with Claude and how the thinking is built behind him and what goes on with that. So one of the clips that I thought was probably the most interesting was they got into a discussion about prompt engineering. And I've talked about prompt engineering a lot. We've talked about it on this show a lot. Uh, that being the case, you guys know where my opinion lies on that. And, I'm always interested in knowing like what the pro opinions are, the people who are actually building this stuff, what their opinions are on it. And I have heard several say that like, hey, the models are at a point now where they know what they want. They know what the best instruction is. They can tell you how to best instruct them. That's why Claude comes with a custom. Well, if you have a paid subscription, it comes with a Claude project that is specific to prompting for Claude. And so I'm sure if you used other tools, it has like helping and stuff like that. But I just thought that this clip in particular was really interesting because of the context and also the reasoning behind like prompting and why like really the use case. I think this is almost like a perfect understanding of prompt engineering as a use case. So just
Awesome.
share this real quick.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things right now is saying, I like what you just did there. What do I need to say next time to make
Yeah.
sure it happens like that again? Like, give me the prompt, give me the instructions. I'll add it in. I'll keep it over here, wherever I gotta do. Um, because that is one of the most frustrating things. Like when you get gold, and then next time you think you're doing the same thing, but all these other variables are in play, and it's like, oh my God. So just take a step back and get help. Like so often I go back into the chats, like old chats, old projects, and be like, hey, I really liked how this happened. Like, give me the prompt framework to make that happen again.
Right. Yeah. There's at least one of my projects to, what I've started doing is instead of having conversations, I've just built projects out of the conversations. And so I just, whenever the output is really good based on whatever the project is that I'm working on, I just save that to the project. And
Yep.
so like as it goes on, I can always ask it to refer back to whatever it was. So I definitely suggest like building a prompt project basically. And like as you're going along and it's doing great prompts, that way when you run out of, context window, you can always just spin up another one and it's already got the premise and it already understands the type of prompting you're doing and how you like to have it done and all that.
Indeed.
So I want to play this clip, and it's so interesting that you brought that up because this you're about to hear an echo.
There's a concern that people over anthropomorphize models, and I think that's like a very valid concern. I also think that people often under anthropomorphize them because sometimes when I see like issues that people have run into with Claude, say Claude is like refusing a task that it shouldn't refuse, but then I look at the text and like the specific wording of what they wrote, and I'm like, I see why Claude did that. And I'm like, if you think through how that looks to Claude, you probably could have just written it in a way that wouldn't evoke such a response. Especially, this is more relevant if you see failures or if you see issues. It's sort of like think about what the model failed at, like what did it do wrong? And then maybe that will give you a sense of like why. There's a concern that people
So
I'm sure Nico will be right back. Challenge with Riverside right now is that the leave button is red and the stop sharing button is red, and they are right next to each other.
we're
So every now and
yeah,
then
it's the
we
worst.
hit the we hit the wrong button. So no worries there. Uh,
Yeah, because you're straight up looking at like something that looks like a cancel, right?
Help us
But it
out. Help us out here, Riverside.
I mean, come on, this platform, it seriously needs like it needs help. Okay, it really does. Um,
Yes.
and I wish I was joking, but it really I'm not.
There
Um,
there are places for improvement for sure.
okay. So so what we were talking about and what Amanda was able to sort of lay out was the fact that when you're working with these models and it seems as though you're having like bad feedback and you get like an answer that you weren't expecting or an answer that isn't the output that you wanted, a lot of times it can be because there wasn't some clear direction given, or maybe it was that you didn't tell it what you didn't want to have happen or what you wanted to avoid. So it definitely, again, back to Chris's point, it lends to, okay, what is it I really want, right? It's like when you're asking for an image and you're trying to describe what you want to see. You could go with like, oh, I want to see a picture of a cat. And yeah, there's whatever, there's 100 million cats, right? 100 million different ways to represent it. Or you can start getting more specific, and you could say I want to see a Bengal tiger with an overt amount of stripes that's hiding in a jungle, at mid morning or something like that, eyeing a gazelle in the distance. Totally different image, totally different output, right? So we talked about it before that context is king, and that's where you need to start out with things, and from there is where you can build out that great framework and that great response that you're looking for. But it's going to take iteration. It's going to take teamwork, essentially. You're going to have to work with the model in order to produce the output that you want. So I thought I would start there, just like a little bit of the technical aspect of it.
Yeah. No, I think and for those who may not know, the word anthropomorphize, attributing human characteristics or behavior to some non-human thing. And we always come back to it's just like learning how to work with another human. It's just like when you delegate something else to a human and they don't do it the way that you want to do it. Like, did you communicate it well? Did you leave important details out? Like did they just mishear you because there was some random noise in the background that caused them to have to try and figure out what you're trying to say, right? There's so many things that go into, you know, this kind of collaboration, right, with people, the same kind of things when you're working with, Claude in this case, any AI tool, any software tool. This has always been the case. Like, did you give it the input that is required to get the output, right? And this is where the flexibility of no matter what you put in, it's going to give you something versus erroring out. You know, it's a learning curve, but when you learn that curve, when you go up the curve, like it just becomes so powerful. And when you can take a step back to remember that and have some, self-awareness of maybe I didn't do what I was supposed to do in this situation. Maybe it's not, Claude doing something unexpected, and now I'm going to run over to Reddit and complain about it. Uh, you know, just like any other tool, just like working with another human being, like go back and forth with it, learn it, get better, just get better.
So that doesn't necessarily lead into the next story, but the next story is really, at least for me, it's profound. And it's, if you've been following progress, it's super profound. Dario will talk about in that video, because it actually, all of this news, it's so funny. Like, it all just kind of hit at the same time. And he didn't really talk about it, which kind of led me to believe, not necessarily that maybe he didn't know, but it wasn't something that he wanted to necessarily talk about, because he has been a huge proponent of, when it comes to making these models better, he's been a huge proponent of this scaling law. And he thinks that essentially the more compute that you put behind the model, the better it's going to be. It's just a flat out rule. Well, that's wrong. So unfortunately, they got to a point where it's just hit it's turned from being a exponential curve upward based on compute to being an S curve. So what they've done, and what OpenAI has realized, and sort of what this means is basically that the models are hitting a point at which the compute is starting to not matter, and even the amount of data that's being shoved in isn't helping things. It's just getting marginally better now. It's not getting the exponential kick upward. And this is happening across the board. This is happening at Google. This is happening at OpenAI. This is happening at Perplexity. It's happening at XAI. Everybody has hit the same wall. And there was some expectation of a plateau. But it's interesting to think that, like, we're at the 2-year mark. We're literally at the 2-year mark when we've hit this plateau. And I think you guys remember me talking either last week or maybe even yesterday about the fact that we might be building, if you look at this in from the lens of automotive, we've built, we built a steam engine of a model. Then we built like an inline four, or like a 2-stroke engine. Then we built an inline 4, then a 6. Now we're kind of up to an 8. And it's super powerful. But all we've been doing is just adding more cylinders and increasing the displacement of the engine. We haven't actually like tuned anything. We haven't changed the blowers. We haven't like done anything with fuel injection. We haven't even put, any sort of like intake on it. We haven't done any exhaust, like nothing, right? So now we're doing that. And that is essentially the next leg of the S curve. So instead of these being like exponential growth, so what's interesting is like there is an exponent of growth, like you could see between 3 and 4.0, right? So that's a huge, huge jump. One model couldn't, all it could do was keep repeating itself over and over, and everything was a deep dive, and everything was, a discovery, and everything was, the same stuff over and over again. It was insanely difficult to work with. Now you have, Claude 3.5 or, Chat 01 preview or 4.0. It's It's night and day. It's not even worth comparing the two. Like there's for 3 doesn't even have the capability for upload and data analysis or any of that. Like it's not even close. 3 is a kindergartner, 4.0 is like a college student, like a graduate college student, right? So
Yeah.
that's the leap in 2 years. What's after grad? Like what's after 4-year grad college? Master's and PhD, right? Well, Claude is already at a post like higher than PhD level in at least 3 areas of study. I think it's actually 5. GPT-01 is 3 PhD levels of study. So we're almost, I mean, we've already passed masters in most categories. There are some categories like math, which are, just very difficult, oddly enough, for the model, but it's because the model is based on language and not based on like doing mathematics, basically. So at this point, the next S curve, like you can guess where we're going to be. The height of this S curve is AGI at just a pure compute mode. If you want to put this into perspective, like what's about to happen between the two differences, like what they're working on is inference of the model. So now they're going to be fine-tuning the part, or the aspect they're going to be tuning is the reasoning through the data, the understanding of the data. There's going to be a lot more post-training that goes on, okay? A lot more pre-training that goes on. What does this look like? It looks like, imagine that you just knew all of the things that there were to know, but you didn't really have as much of an understanding of the why and the how of these things go together. You just know these things. And if somebody asks you about them, you can tell them, but you can't really on your own put new ideas together. You can't really on your own formulate things for yourself. You can't, like the difference being like if I wanted to talk to a current model in some type of bipedal form, robot around my house, I'd have to say, hey, I'd have to tell it the steps, the chain of thought. I'd have to say, hey, go to the refrigerator, open the door, reach down to the second shelf, grab the carton of eggs with a light amount of force, bring that out, put it up on the counter, close the refrigerator door, come back to the counter, open the carton of eggs, hand me 1 egg. Okay. The level we're about to get to and kind of are at this point is get me the eggs from the refrigerator. And everything in between is already understood and already done. Right? So we're fine-tuning that aspect of it. Almost, you could consider this the ESP aspect of it. We're fine-tuning the ability for it to best understand what it is that we want with the initial ask. And not only that, but because of that, the ramification of it best understanding is, again, reasoning. And if it can better reason, then it can essentially think better. It can think smarter, can think through problems better than we can, right? So
Yeah.
like the plateau of this level is AGI. AGI and agents, right? We're about to have things that we're going to be able to, I'm actually going to show one hopefully without crashing the screen here. I've been messing around with something. This is not AGI. It's an insult to even compare the two. But I ran across this yesterday. It's a application from Replit. And if you don't know, Replit is an online platform that you can use in order to launch any type of software that you want for testing. And recently, I've been messing around with no-code stuff like crazy. I've been in Agent AI, I've been in Zapier, I've been in every no-code based agent you could possibly think of. This one destroys all of them. All I've been doing up until now, you can kind of see what's going on here. This application to build out customer journey stages and I can change the name of the stage, change the description, conversion rates, and then when I'm done with this, I can go over to analytics, right? Back to the builder.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Oh, yeah, yep. Oh, I wish, let me see.
Kinda.
Kinda, yeah.
It's okay. Not.
Open pane. It would be nice to have a hide
If you
pane.
click
Okay.
on that little,
There we go.
yeah, there
Yep.
you go.
So, how did I get this? How did I get to this? I literally just went to Replit and I just gave it a prompt. I just want a web-based customer journey visualization tool, helps with business mapping, helps businesses analyze their customer conversion paths through interactive flowcharts and funnels. Here's the core features I want. Here's the style I want it to be in. Absolutely, let's get to work. I'll help you build out that thing. We'll build the initial prototype, we'll implement advanced analytics dashboard, and then we'll enable the journey version history. Yeah, let's go. So it builds out the initial stuff. Then it actually put up a test for me before this that was just, hey, play around with the interface, see if it works. Yeah, it's working. All right, well, I'll fix what's going on with that. I could see that there's a timestamp error, so it went ahead and fixed it. I didn't even catch the timestamp error. It caught it and was like, yeah, you know what? Let me go back and fix this thing. So then can you try updating the journey stages? No errors present when doing the updating, saving, or creating new ones. Cool. I'll build out the rest of the advanced analytics dashboard. And then can you navigate the analytics dashboard and confirm that it loads with the tabs for overview, stage analytics, and trends? So I can, first, I just wanted to see if the template aspect of this works. No, kind of not yet, but that's fine. I'm sure it'll, oh, that's funny. I didn't even notice that it just by default built in a
Dark
light,
mode.
yeah,
Light
dark
mode.
mode to it. It got, I don't even know. What's funny is it initially showed it to me in dark mode as if it understood that it was already working in a dark mode setting from Replit, right? With, I don't know if that's the case, but I just thought it was cool. So yeah, so we can see stage analysis, trends, overview. Clearly this isn't hooked up to a CRM, but it could be. So
Yeah.
essentially what you're looking at is the potential for me to build out, I don't know, Marketo. And then just, I could probably, I didn't want to get, I didn't want us to get in any trouble, but I could honestly say something like, hey, can you build something out that mimics the Marketo platform that I can use to plug in an API key to my CRM and funnel analytics data into it, right? So
Yeah.
as I can, please
And
proceed.
I'd say another approach people could take is getting help understanding why, especially if you're somebody who's never used systems like this before. Because all these systems, like, I remember back when it was my decision in 2017 to do marketing automation for the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
I signed up for Marketo, didn't go well in the first 30 days, found HubSpot. The difference between those two systems as a marketing automation platform, vast,
Right.
right?
Right.
So this is one of those human things that if you can take a step back and say, no, let's not, like, both systems have had their, weaknesses over the years. So instead, why do I even need to use this system? And then all those whys that pop out, give it to the AI, see what kind of system it can create based
Mm-hmm.
on all those goals. Because so much of it's based on the data that you have access to. So it's like, hey, I want to do this. Here's this spreadsheet, this spreadsheet, this spreadsheet, this spreadsheet, right?
Yep.
Let's get after it. Talk about, people talk about focus and expectations early on and finding the quick wins. And like, instead of making it about what people feel like they want, show the data and show the objectives and see what gets built out. That's pretty exciting to think about.
Yeah. I mean, what you're looking at, we've talked about it before, but the reason I wanted to show this is that, specifically to show people that This is what that, wow, naturally intuitive. Um, this is what that environment looks like. This is what that world looks like of zero cost production. You know how much it cost me to start building this app out? $25 a month. For $25 a month, I can now go in here and generatively, no coding, I can generatively build out applications all day long, right? And even if they don't come out perfect, I can sit here and edit and work with it. And Replit is a code-based platform. So believe me when I say that its model is likely extremely fine-tuned to coding and is probably right up there with Claude in terms of being able to code on its own. So realistically, as you can see, full stack app. Hate to say it. Been talking about it. Been mentioning it. Tried to warn you about it. You are looking at an automated, AI-driven, full stack developer. All of these files over here, it is generating on its own. Everything that it needs in order to run the application that it's building, it is building out on its own. I'm not doing anything. It's just going through it. It'll eventually get to the next step. It'll ask me to test it. Then it'll ask me if I need, for feedback. This is what an agent is. This is an agent. It is going to do hours worth of work. I don't know how long it's going to take. Personally, don't care. All I care about is getting my application done. And that just entails it doing the work. And if it needs to come back to me for verification, we were just talking about this yesterday. Like, this is the visual example of that, right? That I'm able to just let this go do its job. I can sit back, do nothing, and it'll just prompt me whenever, like, hey, ran into this problem, or hey, here's the color scheme. Do you want to change it? It'll just ask me personal preference and testing. Otherwise, I don't have to touch anything. I don't have to do anything. Right. So yesterday we were talking about using Claude to level up and advance your ability of being able to do custom coded actions. Today, 24 hours later, we're talking about a generative AI application that is a full stack developer where you can just ask it for an application and it'll build it out for you automatically. Yeah. It takes a minute to
That's
really take
power.
this stuff in.
That's power. Um, and it's like I have no dev experience at all. I just what things come to mind is like when I run into issues and the dev's like, oh, I had to add this, you know, I had to add this JavaScript file or I had to connect this dot with that dot and now it's good to go. Uh, just so many of the challenges. Um, but also like, man, if you're developing product right now, uh, like just take care like in what you're deciding to develop because this is where, and I think you might have started with this moment where there's perfect information available. And I kind of think of it like the next step. So perfect information is like everybody's PhD level, let's say,
Mm.
right? But we know the challenge of university is often people get out of university having no idea what the hell to do in the real world.
Yep.
It's all theory-based knowledge. They can't apply it to anything, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like when we think of this next level, right? Once perfect information exists, and I'm glad we've got there to like where you don't need more compute to get to perfect information. Basically, it's just more compute makes you overthink it, like we do as human beings all the time. Like don't
Mm-hmm.
sell passive clothes, like all that stuff, right? Like now you have this information set, getting to the moment of perfect application of it, right?
Yep.
Sounds like AGI or how people talk about it. And, in one of the videos you shared, it talked about it was like the coffee problem or something like that, where you can just tell the robot to go in go into a house it's never been in before and make coffee,
Yep.
right? Without giving all of the instructions that you mentioned before,
Exactly.
right? That's like a personal level of basically agentic behavior. Like it can know like how to evaluate the house,
Hmm.
like what a refrigerator looks like versus what the cupboard looks like, and okay, I expect it to be here, not there. Now I'm going to look over here. Like all this decision making that has to happen, which is fun for me. It's always fun to be a little introspective and think about, oh man, we take a lot of this stuff for granted. And but when you hear things like how many decisions we have to make in a day,
Yep.
right, and decision fatigue and all this stuff, we talk about, you know, cognitive burden and overload. Like we are doing all this stuff subconsciously all the time,
Yeah.
and those are like that's where it's not there yet. When it gets there, it will be amazing. But this is also why it's not there yet. Like since we don't even know that about ourselves very well, and we're the ones training it, it's got to overcome some of our shortcomings to get there. Um, but yeah, so I think like that the fact that we've hit this part of the S curve is definitely, fun to think about from a perspective of like, as long as it's everybody's saying like more compute, more energy, more this, more that, it's like, okay, when are we going to get to the moment of it starts to get more efficient and starts to go down that hill? It sounds like if they've confirmed that no more, like, you don't need more compute to get past this point, maybe we're closer to that. And it's just about refining and, developing the rest of the systems, right? Outside of the engine, basically.
Yeah. I think that it's definitely going to be a case where, you know, and I think it's going to be very soon. I don't think that it's going to be something where it's going to be years from now that we see the end result of this. I think it's going to be like a year from now. If people if you think back, it wasn't even very long ago that Sam said that he's very confident that we would have artificial superintelligence within within thousands of days. Right. So like that's, I don't even know that I don't think that it's going to take that long, if I'm being honest. I think that it's going to be shorter than that. I actually finally just got the hold up the graphic because I'm so good at that. So like this is what the current sort of S curve looks like, right? So we had like GPT-2, which was like nothing, and now we're getting towards this level of Orion, right? So this is the peak of the S curve, and if you're looking at it properly, it's like again, this is probably where we come into AGI, right? It's not like it could be oh 01, oh 02, oh 03, but I honestly think that it's right at this point, this initial inflection. So whenever we make this first transition is when there's going to be like a really greater understanding of what's going on. And this is, the fact that this says 25, 26, not for nothing. This is, I think, from AI Advantage. Um, it's, you can't look at, so this is where the exponent comes in, I think. And I know this seems really weird. I think maybe, I mean, it is still an S curve, but I think it's maybe more that this area is softer. I think it's a very short amount of time that we live in this can't figure it out stage. Again, if we're already using AI to develop better hardware, there's no doubt in my mind that we're using it to develop better software and at least to give us the ideas of how we could make it better, which is why I think we're headed down the road of like, oh, just better training. And back like what I was saying before was, you can have a brain that's full of tons of data, but the only way you make it super smart is if you fine tune it and if you get it to understand how all of that works together. So getting it to understand how all the data works together, that's not going to take as long. It's probably only going to take a year. So I really do think like within this next year, like if O1 is performing where it's at now and it's not quite AGI, this sort of marker is off because we're at the end of 24. So you can see like if I were going to plot it, I'd say very beginning of next year, like May, March, April, May, like March, probably March, April. We'll see something like we'll see O2. We'll at least get an example and sort of get like a hint of like, hey, here's where we actually like are getting at.
Yeah, I think the only safe bet is that it's going to happen faster than anybody thinks.
Yep.
Uh, and man, if you keep, if somehow you're still sleeping on AI, it is time to wake up with AI. Have a great day, everybody.
Fuck that red button, man. Fuck that